Hello, welcome to Science Streams. And our Connected Conversations series this week brings in NattyScience. Nathan, welcome in. And I honestly know nothing about you, really. I have guests fill in like a form to talk about like who they are and everything. You were the briefest of of almost everyone. It's like, what do you want to talk about? Yeah, biochemistry. Oh, okay, that's vague enough. Okay, yeah. Um, uh, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, as much as you want to divulge without going into any personal details? Remember, this is public, no social security numbers or addresses or phone numbers. Tell us about yourself.
Um, yeah, so I'm Nathan, and I know people who have watched me before know that I've said I'm in Ohio right now, and I go to Ohio State, so I will divulge that. So if you really want to look into me, you'll find me. Um, but yeah, I'm a grad student, PhD student doing biochemistry, and I'm almost done, hopefully, very soon. My plan is at the end of this year to be done, and then I can move on to, I would like to industry, I think. That's what I've been thinking, though. I guess there's a possibility my mind will change for something else. But yeah, that's the gist. And I've got my evolution shirt on to represent the biology part of biochemistry.
Speaking of the evolution part,
Yeah,
you have the Darwin shirt on.
Darwin's.
So I heard that Darwin's arch in the Galapagos collapsed.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
One of my colleagues at work sent me the link. Did you see that this happened? Hey, Kathy Ward, thanks for stopping in.
Oh,
Glad to
Kathy's
have you
here.
here. Yeah, you obviously know. That's awesome. You have friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it collapsed, and I told her, I'm like, it reminded me of the time that the man on the side of the mountain, the New Hampshire thing fell. And it was like the entire iconography of New Hampshire died in one afternoon because of weathering and erosion. Uh, that happens.
Yeah. It's sad history, but that's what happens.
Yep, that's what. Now, have you been to the Galapagos?
No,
In the
no, no.
short, no, I haven't
I'm
either.
actually pretty good at geography, but can't even remember where it is. Is South America, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Whew.
Go to South America and then go west.
Then go west. Okay.
Yeah. Um, and I think it's one of those trips I kind of want to take, but at the same time, I know it involves a lot of boat travel. I'm not good with boats all the time.
Oh, I see.
Motion sickness is a thing. All right. So I don't know if it's something I would necessarily. I would probably suffer just to do it, but I would probably get on the main island and just be like, I'm looking at the tortoises. I'm not going anywhere. Stop
What if
bothering
the
me.
boats have beagles on them? Is that fine then?
Yeah, I think about the explorers like Darwin when he did his trip. I'm like, were you just sick the entire time? A lot of people
Ugh.
were, between like the dysentery and the malnutrition, and maybe they just kind of counteracted each other. I have scurvy, therefore I'm not motion sick.
Well, I think at least at that time they figured out the whole scurry thing,
Yeah,
right, with the limes. Okay,
yeah,
good. That's what I thought.
yeah. They'd
I'm trying
figure
to.
that out.
Also, there's a Alfred Wallace. Is that his name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I took a history of science class, and he like also came up with natural selection at like the same time. And I really liked
Yep.
his explanation actually better from what I read. It was a lot more succinct and easier to understand than
Mhm.
Darwin's. But
Yep. The other thing, have you ever tried to like look through a microscope on a like moving vessel?
no, not. Have
It,
you?
yes. It's like you take motion sickness and you multiply it by 10. You know, it, it is painful. I tried it once. I did an educational program on a replica ship, Half Moon, and a lot of it was science. And we would get, we'd get soil, samples from the bottom of the Hudson River. We'd look at them and water samples and try to find plankton and zooplankton. I was good for a little bit, and then I'll just be like, nope, I'm done. Not gonna do that anymore. No thanks.
I imagine if you get seasick, that's gonna make it even worse.
Yeah, and it could be almost not moving. You're looking through it. It's just. some research is not. Have you done field research? Maybe? I know you're mostly biochem. You're stuck in a lab. That's why
Stuck
you
in
don't
a
know
lab.
geography. You don't
Yeah,
even
I
go
got
out.
a
You don't
South
even go out
America
and
thing.
get samples. You just kind of,
Nope.
bring me the samples. Give me
There are
what I
people who
need.
do it though. I'm sure you know,
Oh,
but
oh yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
There's um. So I was just gonna say quickly that I heard a talk from a guy even who like they went on a boat, like a sailboat, I think, of some sort, and they went around the entire ocean and they were collecting like viruses, I think.
mhm.
Oh, that reminded me of Craig Venter. I think he did something similar a long time ago, but this guy did another different sort of thing. Uh, but I guess it's kind of biochemistry-esque, maybe microbiology. I don't know. Blurred lines.
Yep. Um, yeah. So I think one of the reasons I got into teaching that I kind of liked it was that I can decide if I want to go outside,
Okay.
and
Yep.
I can decide if I want to stay inside. Like tomorrow, if I really want, I could just be like, guess what, kids? We're going to go outside. And they'd be like, but it's raining. I don't care. No, I wouldn't do that to them. But, for us is like when I worked in a lab, and I think this is just, I had a bad experience in a lab. It was just, you were in a room with no windows and a fume hood. And that's what you looked at for 8 hours. I was just kind of like, this sucks. Like,
Yeah, I can see that. It does sometimes. I got no windows, so yeah.
whereas other
But
people have told me, oh, if you have the right team and you're working with the right people, and you're in the right lab, it's a wonderful experience, and the job is fantastic. Being in a lab, I'm like, okay,
yeah, it's nice workout kind of. Not workout really, but well sometimes actually, yeah. But it's nice like, not sitting down at your chair the whole day, like sort of thing. So like maybe that's less of an issue you'll have later in life is like I sit in a
mhm.
chair for 8 hours not having to move and I need to do that. So that's a nice thing about it.
Well,
um
that's everyone's reality now. I think they're all like, yep, just sitting
well,
in chairs all day.
yeah,
All day.
maybe now.
Mhm.
Slowly getting back to normal
Yep,
hopefully.
yep. Um, I did have another job where I worked for the Forest Service, and I spent the entire day outside.
Ooh,
So I had both extremes. I didn't like that either.
okay.
Yeah.
Just dirty, too dirty a lot of the time,
No, it
or
was just I enjoy the outdoors, and so like
okay.
I'd get to the end of the work week. We did 4 10-hour days because once you get out to your site, it's like you might as well stay there for 10 hours because it takes you like an hour to get to your work site. I didn't want to go outside on the weekends and do the outdoor stuff that I enjoyed doing because I had just spent the entire week,
Yeah.
outside, and so it's kind of like, besides the weather and the mosquitoes and all that. But in the next job, and this was for the Forest Service, and the next job they said in the fall, they're like, oh, we're going to send you to northern New Hampshire in the winter to do tree inventory. I'm like, let's see, northern New Hampshire in the winter. That sounds like it sucks.
Tree inventory. That's kind of. I would have
Yeah.
thought you would have done that in the summer when
That's what
it's
I was
not
doing in the summer, but you
snow.
do it in the winter too, because a lot of times certain places are inaccessible in the summer because they're overgrown with brush and
Oh,
brambles. So it's actually easier to get to certain sites in the forest during the winter. And the other thing in the Forest Service that you do that pays really well is you fight forest fires.
hmm.
That's
That's
like you work for like 3 weeks for 12-hour days, 18-hour days, and then you're done and you've made your money for the next 6 months. Um, but, you know, I really didn't want to do that anymore. So that's how I went to grad school for teaching.
you were like no more for Forest Service
No more lab work, no more Forest Service. I'll do something in between.
between. Okay,
So
that's fair. That's good.
that's my decision for grad school. Since one of the topics we're going to talk about is grad school. That's how I decided, because I knew I had to go to grad school, right? I got to the point after my undergrad, I was like, I'm stuck at this level, either being a lab grunt or,
Yeah.
A low-level employee within science, with an undergrad. And everyone I knew that was in a leadership role or at least a higher role than I was had a graduate degree of some kind. So I kind of knew that my career was kind of kind of sunk at that point, and I might as well go ahead and look for a graduate degree. That, and I wanted to get married and start a family and stuff, so I kind of knew that I had to make some progress in the professional direction as well. And so I ended up doing teaching. So what was your story?
Oh, mine's not not very interesting. I think mine. It's been a while now since I've had to think about it. Only 5 years, though, I guess, really. But I think I just, well, maybe how I got in biochemistry is a little bit interesting. I really liked chemistry when I got to high school. I was like, maybe I want to be a doctor. Also, maybe I want to do history. I liked history.
Mhm.
And then I took chemistry in 11th grade, I think it was, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And I don't know, Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, I think
Yep.
is the author. Like he's a chemist, and I don't know why that just like vibed with me. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love this book, and I'm taking chemistry at the same time. So I wanted to do a chemistry thing, and I applied for my undergrad, and we have it had colleges.
Hey, Dark Mark, welcome
Um,
and thanks for being here.
ooh, hi, Dark Mark. Um, and so I had to apply to a college, a specific college within the university, and I ended up applying to the college that I didn't actually have chemistry. It had biochemistry. So I was like, well, I guess biochemistry it is. I did want to maybe be a doctor, so it kind of is a good mixture, biology, chemistry. So I just went with that, and then I just realized that I really liked the actual science part of it. So then I was like, well, grad school it is. I just want to like do experiments, like just become, more independent scientist. I think was my original thought behind it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but
And
pretty traditional, right?
right.
Right from undergrad to grad school.
Yep. And Marcus is talking about paying off your student loans in science. So
Oh,
I'm told, right? You don't pick up loans as a graduate student because you have assistantships usually, and you they say you get paid to go to school. You from what I understand, if you can weigh in on this, you get basically paid, like your subsistence living. Um, it's enough to kind of make your ends meet as a student. Um, but you don't end up incurring more debt, at least in science, in the
yeah.
sciences.
I think it depends on the field too. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think more computer science tends to not be as much the case, but I don't really know. I'm just basing it off of people I know. Um, if you're fine with it, are you fine with me saying how much I make? Is that fine with you?
That's up to you. That's
Okay,
entirely
I
a
don't care.
personal choice.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering. It's
My,
like a taboo with our society, but I think it's kind of a weird taboo. I mean, I understand why it's a taboo, but I guess just to give people a sense. So, biochemistry, I think tends to be a little more higher paying, but I make $27,000 a year, so not too great, but
Mhm.
not like minimum wage. So that's what it is. And yeah, also depends on the field. Biochemistry is a cool like mixture between chemistry and biology. That makes sense. I think chemistry people tend to have to find like a certain professor that they want to do research with and be like, I want to do research with you. I then kind of have to go through you to get into the school and be like,
Mhm.
you want me to be in your lab, like you got to get you're going to provide funding to me, like I'm going to be in your lab when I get there. Whereas biochemistry I think is more like the biology field in that regard, where you're just applying to the school really, and you get there and then you actually try out different labs. So
Okay.
the first well, at least for us, we had to try out 3 different labs. They made us, but usually you just end up trying a few different labs out, and then you decide what you want. And so you don't really have to worry about the whole funding thing. You end up getting paid right away, and then when you get the lab that you're going to, then you end up either being a TA or getting paid to do research. So
Mhm.
that's the cool thing about that. So I really like the system, that the way that's set up, instead of having to find a professor that's like, oh, I want to do research with this person and like try to get in with them
Mhm.
and be like, you're the person that gets me into the school. Um, so that's a nice thing about it.
Hey, non-dairy neutrino. Yep,
Oh,
I think
non-dairy.
you know
Hi.
him. I've heard some bio people though going to labs specifically
Oh,
for
yeah.
that research. They're like, oh, I like that professor's research. I like the research they're doing in that program. I'm going to go there for that reason. I have heard of that happening. In fact, I applied to a few programs. I was thinking of doing biology for graduate study, for those professors. Of course, they're like, we have no openings right now. I'm like, okay.
No.
Because I'd
Yeah.
call them up or, back then, because, just be like, hey, you got openings? And be like, nope. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. People definitely do that. I guess well, I mean, obviously I don't know all the different programs out there and such. And I'm also thinking like PhD level. I really don't know much about masters.
Yeah.
But at least like in our program and the other ones that I applied for, like they force you. Like even if you're like, oh, I want to work for this professor, you could rotate in their lab and try their lab out. But like
Hmm.
they're like, no, you have to try multiple labs out to find which
Hmm.
one you want to be in.
Yep. Now, did you have like, I was talking to Mary last week, and, she was talking about for her program, when she visited, she knew right away that it was at the kind of place where she wanted to be. Like, the people that were smiling, they were inviting, and it was a good atmosphere. Whereas, some other places you go to, it's kind of like if everyone's like crying in a corner, you kind of avoid that place.
Yeah.
Did you kind of get that feeling with your program where you're kind of like you went there like, oh, this is it. These people are awesome.
Yeah. That's exactly like Mary's. I it was a lot of like atmosphere. Also, like other things matter too. Like I needed to have some professors that I was interested in their research, of course. But besides that, yeah, atmosphere is a big part of it. Like one of the schools I went and interviewed at, well, actually, wasn't planning on ending up in the field that I'm in, Chromatin area, but actually I interviewed with like the like kind of like well-known like top person in the field at that grad school, but the atmosphere at the at the school I didn't like so much, so I didn't end up going there. But that was interesting. I got to see her later. But yeah, atmosphere is a big part of it. So I think again that's kind of like the advantage of this like lab rotation system, I guess. I don't know if that's, well, okay, maybe that's not necessarily connected. I guess it's like a, well, at the very least, right? You get opportunities. You get opportunities to try out
Hmm.
different labs. So there's at least that, instead of going in like I have to work with this person. And like a lot of times I see people be like I have to work with this person, and then
Hmm.
they get in there and then they don't like working with that person. So
Right.
yeah, definitely you get that advantage too of getting actually to try out if there is a specific person you're like I must work for this person.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, atmosphere definitely. And actually, that's the same with choosing a lab too. I think that was the advice that I sort of took, and I saw like kind of older people saying was, um, some people would be like, oh, like the research is the number one thing. That's what I'm going to focus on when deciding which lab I want to be in. And for me, I think it was like number two probably. And number one for me was like what the professors like, what it's like to work for them. How do they deal with students, and what's the lab like? Which I think a lot of older people will say it's maybe the more important thing to look at for PhD at least.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes for even like my oldest daughter is a junior. She'll soon be a senior. Looking at colleges, even, she's worried. She's like, well, like, I don't know what colleges I'm going to go to or I want. I'm like, look, you just go to a whole bunch and you see what works
Yeah.
for you, and so I think it's one of those things in life where you kind of have to kind of just explore and see what works for you. Um, and unfortunately, with jobs, that doesn't always happen. I
Mm.
know for myself, it's like
Hmm.
you send out like 5 applications and you get 2 interviews and you get a second interview at one of them, and you're kind of like, okay,
I have no choice.
I have no choice. I go to work here, and you could go there and everyone's miserable and your boss is a jerk face. So I I think especially if it's education and you're kind of paying for it, you have much more of a choice of where you go, because of course you're kind of lending yourself in there, and it's more of an agreement that you're making versus a job where you're like, I want to take what I'm going to get. And on the same time, right now, I think the job market for science is better now than it was
Oh,
when I first got out of school. I think in more places, like, because the job market right now is crazy. Like, you can get work fairly easily, especially low paying, low skill jobs, but in sciences as well,
so my
in STEM fields.
anecdotal evidence for it is just looking at Indeed. I do it every once in a while, and then just talking to people. And yeah, I agree. It seems like there's a lot of jobs. In the biochemistry area, at least there are a lot of jobs available. But I don't know how the competition is because at
Hmm.
least people tell me that it's on. It seems that they apply for about 50 different jobs for one interview that they get, which is
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean I've been in school essentially my whole life,
Right.
so I really don't know how normal that is or if that's just anecdotal and wrong. But supposedly I've heard it's like 50 to 1 for getting an interview. So I don't know how that compares.
Yeah. I think it really, I've been out of the job market for so long. I'm just kind of like guessing. Um, IT tech jobs, yeah. Um, but there are a lot of IT tech jobs, and I think it depends on where you are. And it was the same when I
Yeah.
was getting. If you're willing to move, there's someone willing to hire you. It is what it is. Because a lot of times, if there's a job, it's like we need someone in rural upstate New York, and yes, we have a gas station here, and not everyone wants that job. They're going to be like, no, I want to work in New York City, or no, I want to work, in a more populated area. I want to live in a suburb, versus, the jobs that are available might not be where you want to be.
Yeah. I know that I imagine it's like IT tech jobs, sort of similar, where California is the real hopping place. So biotechnology is real big there. Boston's like pharmacy, kind of biotechnology. I think Chicago's got some stuff. I'm from Minnesota, so I would like to go back to Minnesota. Minneapolis actually has a decent biotechnology, I think,
Hmm.
field, but it's not like San Francisco or Boston. But my goal, I think, is I looked up a list of like 500 biotechnology companies in Minneapolis, and I'm like, gonna hit all them up. Even if none of them have job offerings, I'm just gonna email them and be like, hey,
Well, that area is known for medical research in particular, um,
uh,
like University of
yeah,
Minnesota.
yeah,
Um,
University of Minnesota. I think Boston Scientific's there. Um, 3M, but that's not
mhm.
probably. Well, maybe it's medical. I don't really know. Oh, I guess they do medical. Duh. Yeah, like they
they,
have
they have their hands in
N95s and
everything.
yeah, they do.
3M. Um, yeah, in our area in the Hudson Valley where I am, we're known as a nanotech center. We have a lot of nanotech facilities and a couple of biotech. We also have a small gaming hub as well of
Oh,
gaming companies. So, but most of that was not around when I was looking for jobs, by the
I
way.
see.
That all came about in like the last 10 years. Things really started taking off um, locally. Before then, there really wasn't much. So, uh, yeah, like I said, it depends on where you are and what you're looking to do. You can get a job. Teaching, as I plugged before, almost everyone's always looking for teachers. So,
Yeah,
especially
I
if,
looked into that a little. Did that alternative teaching route with the PhD. So I might I might think about it. I thought I had it all figured out, but I don't know. I don't know. It's tough.
I tell you what, with the degree, like chemistry and physics teachers in particular, are like you will get earth science as well. You'll get snatched up like crazy. Any district that you want to work in, at least in New York State, you know,
Okay.
is hiring because most people are going to go into industry. If you have a PhD in physics, like you're going to teach, or even a master's in physics, right, or an undergrad in physics, you're not going to go to a high school and teach usually. Um, but it does happen. We actually have a lot of times it'll be career people that come in, that have already, been in a, out in the field working for 10 years and then decide teaching is something they want to do. Um, and a lot of times that'll happen when like they're working for GE or something and they're like, well, we're going
Mhm.
to move you across the country. And they're like, no, I'll get a
Don't
certificate to
don't want
teach
to.
and just stay where I am, you know? So
Yeah, I would like to avoid Boston and well, Boston's not so bad maybe in my
I
mind, but
love
California.
Boston. I hate on
I might.
Boston. I like Boston.
Okay. I know nothing about it. I just really want to go back to Minnesota. That's my prime objective.
There
But
you go.
if I
Go
can't,
back to
obviously
Minnesota.
I can't. I mean, the nice thing about a PhD in general is I guess you have other options. Like if
Hmm.
all fails besides science, there are other options. So that's the good thing.
Yep. Okay.
I guess for me, the big worry is just getting my exact thing that I want to do. Like, I want to do biotechnology with like protein engineering. Like, that's the exact thing I want to do. I don't know if I'll be able to find that exact thing, so I might have to make it more broad, but I'll try.
Yeah. But the other cool things about teaching, at least where I am, like,
Mm-hmm.
because you do a lot of like home science, right? I've seen you post
Mm-hmm.
about that. If you have your own classroom, your own lab, you don't have to do it at your house necessarily.
Yeah,
I can do
yeah,
whatever I want in my back lab room. I can just be like, I'm going to do some experiments, you know,
that's nice. I wish
you
I had
know.
that.
And then you're like,
I
I
mean,
could do this with kids or whatever. You know, it's kind of nice, you know, to be able to do that.
that's a good point. Hmm.
You're like,
Well, I imagine I don't know if a company. I imagine a company probably wouldn't want me to do that. University maybe. I was thinking about doing it,
Yep.
but I talked to like Amanda Freckled Science
Mhm.
and maybe someone else, and I decided probably not a good idea to do it. So I just decided not to do it. No streaming in lab.
Yeah, I've done some. I used to stream. Some of my first streaming was from my classroom. I would do, you know, labs like elephant toothpaste and some classic experiments and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
I would do stuff like that, streaming from lab, and it was pretty good. And I've seen Amanda do some science, you know, on her stream as well. She did some really cool stuff. And there are a bunch of other edgy streamers, you know, that are on, you know, Knowledge Fellowship that stream from their lab,
yeah,
which is interesting. So it's just one of those things you have, like when I would stream from my classroom, I would have to, of course, go around and make sure that every kid's name, if I posted something on the wall, was
Mm,
covered. You know, because, you know, you know, you can't have that. So I have to like be very careful about those simple things. You know, you have to, you know, when you're doing something public like this, you got to think about it,
yes,
or you get caught doing something
yeah,
bad.
yeah. I, I like hinted at it to the professor I do research for, and he didn't kind of iffy on it. It seemed. And then yeah, after just talking, seeing what Amanda had to say, I was like, maybe not. Just because if the university finds out, they might be like, oh, you're making money off of this. Well,
Hmm.
there's some legal issues there, and
Right, and that's kind of like,
you,
well, there are a couple of reasons I stopped doing it, but that was one of them. Like, well, technically, I'm using the school Wi-Fi and
yeah,
school
that too.
equipment, but at the same time, this is professional, you know, for me. Um, you know, and I do have other, like, I don't know if they're regrets, but things I've learned of posting videos. Like, I have videos that I posted for class that are on like school YouTube channels versus my personal one. And I have videos with like hundreds of thousands of views that
Ooh,
I don't even have access to anymore because they're on an old district Google account that
yeah,
they kind of shut down, but it's still up there in cyberspace. So I'm like, if I had put that on a personal account, you know, I could have had more control over it and maintained ownership of that. Because, you know, a lot of those videos I record on my own devices, using my own equipment, using my own video editing software. I can't do it at school or that. And I'm like, I should, you know, that should be something I'm being compensated for. But at the same time, it's weird in that if students are watching it and they like and subscribe to the channel, in a way, I'm making money off my students.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's kind of a, it's like, which is the lesser of two evils, being compensated for it versus, you know, taking advantage of students. And that's still, I think, a lot of us in this space grapple with that kind of thing.
yeah. I guess I have the advantage of I don't have any students, so
Yeah.
I have that advantage at least.
Yeah, Dr. Young's lab has done some really cool streams uh, from there as well. You're getting a official backing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's trying to move to TikTok too with actual like Johns Hopkins thing. So,
that's cool.
interesting.
Yeah, you know, and that's, you know, and you know, NattyScience and I were talking before we went on this stream about, you know, this kind of thing as well, and where that your personal versus your professional identity, you know, comes in, you know, which we're kind of into as well. And I think a lot of people that stream struggle with this, or even have an online persona or personality. I have chosen just to own who I am because my students will find me after they stalk me anyways. It just means that like I have to have a family friendly stream. Right? I can't just have a stream where I'm like cursing and raging at a game. I have to, be better than that. So that's something that I chose, myself. I mean, this is who I am. This is what I do. But that's not for everybody.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think my main worry right now, and I am a young, naive kid, uh, is just employers, potential employers. Not that I do anything, I don't think bad, but just potential employers. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to make it a little hard to find me, but it's pretty
Yeah.
easy to find really anybody if you want to dig.
Right. I think if you could justify what you do and they still don't like it, then you want to work for them anyways. Right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of like if my school is like, we don't want you doing this. I'm like, but I'm doing it professionally and I'm reaching kids. I'm spreading knowledge about science. I'm passionate about it. And they're like, well, we don't want you to do it. I'd be like, well, I don't want to work here. It's like,
Yeah.
like
Good
you
point.
don't want to work at some place that doesn't value your own values. Right.
Yeah.
Like, why would
Yeah.
you not
Yeah.
want me to stream about science and connect with people? Like, that's ridiculous. It's the same thing with you. It's like, I could see if they're like, well, we don't want to associate you because you're, smoking doobies on Twitch and, doing keg stands, then you're kind of like, okay, I can see that, because you don't have dissimilar values. But, if you have similar values, then you should have an acceptance of who, you are as either, corporation and yourself.
Okay.
Soapbox. Sorry.
I'll have to think about it. I guess
Soapbox. I'm
again,
old and naive. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was gonna say my young and naive sense is that in an ideal world that would be nice, but in a competitive job market, you have to take jobs sometimes where maybe you don't line up 100%. But that's my young
I have tenure.
naive. Oh, yeah, you have that too. Not a thing in the industry world. I guess to bring up personal life, yeah, my dad also has a PhD. If I don't think he's here. Food experiment. He's I really like his stream. I just discovered it, but he does food science. My dad has a PhD in food science. But he's been in industry the whole time. So it's been very interesting to listen to him talk about what the industry is like. And obviously it's a different industry, but it is the industrial world.
Yep. And I think it's important, and it's kind of like why I would like to see you. I mean, I like to see you in teaching, of course, but in industry as well, where we get more people that understand social media and Twitch and this, this stuff, in those spaces, versus, people that just don't understand it at all.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I have so many decisions and thinking to make. Life, it never ends.
Well, it does eventually, for
I
everybody.
guess that's true.
Sorry.
Darn it! I didn't know that. I was working on that actually. I was working on lengthening telomeres and somehow preventing cancer with that.
A good thing to think about though, and I didn't realize this till I got into a career for a little while, is that a lot of people have second and third careers.
Yeah.
It's like they finish something and it's like they're somewhat tangentially relates to what they were doing, and it's like you've seen this happen with postdocs, right? You're supposed to do that as a postdoc, right? You go into a different field that's tangentially related to what you were doing. And I've seen, teachers, of course, have quit teaching and gone to other things, but people can't have multiple careers, and it's more common now than in the 50s when you're the career man at the same company to get your gold watch after working for 35 years.
I guess I didn't with the postdoc thing. I guess because I haven't thought about being a postdoc really. I didn't know that people generally get into a different field. Just because whenever I have seen postdoc, job listings, it's just like a industry job where it's like you need to have this experience. So it's like, how can I go to a different field if you want me to have all this experience with something?
I only know
So
that because I talked to someone that was going to be a postdoc on this
okay.
series, and I asked him that. It's great. I'm like, is it just me, or does everyone seem to like go off on a completely different field? And they're like, oh no, that's common for a postdoc.
Oh,
You
okay.
kind of like go,
Interesting.
you know, somewhat related but different. Like you go from chemistry to physics, or something like that. So I was like, that's impressive. I don't know if I
Yeah.
could do that.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you know. I know non-dairies here and some others know, but I'm actually surrounded by physicists.
That
Um, I'm in a physicist lab technically in the physics department, and a lot of the grad students that come in are physics grad students. So
cool.
I'm kind of in that world. I'm doing biochemistry though, and they're doing biochemistry actually. So for them, it's kind of like the really impressive thing. I'm like, oh wow, you come in, you don't even know what a protein is, and then like a few years, you're like full-fledged like biochemist. I'm like, nice. I applaud you. That is amazing that you're able to do that. I don't know if I could go into a random experimental physics lab and in a few years be like, oh yes, I will tell you all about Hamilton functions and blah.
Oh, I don't know. There's only so much room in your brain, at least for me.
Yeah.
Protein is what I eat for dinner. Maybe. Unless you're like my kids and all you eat is mac and cheese.
Well, that's
Carbs
got
and fat.
everything's got protein in it if it's a living, right?
Is mac and cheese living?
Well, there was wheat.
Yeah,
I know, yeah.
it's joking.
And DNA. That's the other thing too. I tell
Yep.
people is you eat DNA all the time too.
Yep, nucleic acids.
It's not gonna turn you into a mutant or do some weird thing if you eat DNA. Oh no.
All right, so your take on GMOs then?
Yeah. Well, yeah, GMO is a very broad term that is not specific, and it's really and yeah, so it's just a broad term and not specific. It's like it's like the whole evolution thing where people say
Yeah.
I don't believe in evolution. Actually, no. If you were to convert that into like science lingo, you're actually saying I don't believe in natural selection causing evolution to have occurred like over a long period of time. But yeah, with the whole GMO thing, it's like they actually mean I don't like what is it? I guess artificially changing the genes of something, but only in this one specific way. That's what you don't like.
Right.
Is GMO, right? It's just a very broad term. But yeah, you knew that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. I could also see you going into the grocery store and like going into a rage and picking up a box of food and be like, what is this?
I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, but I rage about left-handed versus right-handed DNA.
Oh yeah. Every stream I see you on, you rage about it.
I look into company logos. There's science company logos. They got left-handed DNA. I'm like, but yeah, I go into the store and I'm like, purposely don't buy things that are organic. Purposely don't buy things that have the non-GMO butterfly in it. I'm like, no, none of this.
Stop lying to me.
No choice. Yeah. And I break down in the middle of the store. I'm like, you're all being fed lies. No.
That guy's in aisle 9 again.
Yeah. But that's again not my area of expertise. So, but it's a pretty simple thing to understand. I mean, a lot of things are simple. I mean, what is it? Feinstein. It's like, oh, you should be able to explain something to a kid. So, many things you can do that. You should be able to do it.
You should be able to.
Yeah.
But the recipient has to be willing to learn.
That's true too.
That's the part that you have to remember.
Also, I guess not even just learn, but like
be open to the idea.
Yeah, be open to the truth that they can be wrong, and that they are often wrong. That everybody's wrong about things, and that you should value the truth over everything else. Not like what you feel you want to be right is right.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of philosophy stuff.
Like a non-dairy brings his own pesticides.
To force it to be non-organic. Ooh. Well, actually, it's organic food. Well, okay, yeah, we talked about this in the Keto stream, but yeah, organic food, like the term organic is also not well defined, except USDA organic is regulated term. I think. But even then, they allow pesticides. There's just like some pesticides are allowed, and then the others that are not on the list are not allowed. There's still pesticides in organic food, even.
Hmm. Otherwise, they probably will get them to grow.
Yeah, yeah. Bugs will eat them.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. And trust me, as a teacher of eighth grade and high school kids, getting them to change their mind on something can be extremely difficult.
Mm. Well, I really don't have experience with kids, but I've had that experience with adults.
They're just small adults in many ways.
Yeah.
But and sometimes it takes time. The at least for kids, I always say that they still have a chance of redemption.
Okay.
Adults, it's already too late usually.
For me, my favorite like method is the Socratic method. So
Yeah.
you just ask questions, and then you ask questions in a way to get them to think about like their faulty
Hmm.
logic maybe, and then like
Yep.
you know you can sleep well at night going like, yes, I think I planted an idea in their head, and they're like, yeah, that's a good point, maybe
Yep.
I am wrong, I'm thinking about this wrong. That's always my goal with the contentious stuff.
Yep. Hey, Nikita heard the name drop when you dropped her name
Oh,
earlier.
Nikita's here. Hi, Nikita.
She was like, "There's ringing in my ears. I think someone's
Yeah,
talking
we're
about me."
talking organic food.
Yeah, I think the Socratic method's one of the better ones. You just ask good, pointed questions, and that's what the way you teach science, as well. Is kind of like you realize that there's a gap in your knowledge, and that something doesn't fit, and that only then can the conceptual change happen, where like you begin to see that your thinking is incomplete, and therefore there's something else, there's something missing that you have to learn. And that's where, as a science teacher, you jump in and you say, do this experiment, or let's look into this.
I think
Answer your
that
question.
also ties to a PhD too, because I feel that like a PhD is not really about learning like just things. It's not like you're just gonna sit there and like, oh, I'm gonna do a deep dive in this one thing and memorize a bunch of stuff. That's what you do for some research stuff. But like the whole point, the big idea, I think, point is that you are learning how to think like a scientist, how to critically think, how to analyze things, how to ask questions, all that sort of stuff. So
Hmm.
that's the stuff you should be getting from a PhD. But that's the stuff you should be getting in general from and everything in life. I guess that's another thing
Hmm.
we met. Well, you're the education person. I have no experience really, but that's a big thing that just me knowing nothing about education, uh, I would like to see happen. Maybe more of. I really don't know what's happening. Is just like a focus on critical thinking over just like just memorizing something, regurgitating, like teaching critical thinking. How do you like know what's true and not true? All that sort of stuff. Um, Very
Hmm.
important.
Oh yeah. So and that's where, you know, I'll go into the education part now, where like the new science is coming in, where we're talking about the next generation science standards, where it's more thinking and critical
Okay, that's
thinking.
good.
And but it's hard when, like, especially when you talk to people in higher ed, and they either complain the kids can't critically think or they don't know anything. It's hard to teach both.
Hmm. I see.
But that's the dream. The dream is to be able to teach the critical thinking along with the content and kind of get the full package. um, but the challenge is doing both.
I see.
It can be very tough.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I do understand and I don't understand because I'm not there, but I understand.
You know what I mean? 'Cause, like, even when you went to college yourself, you might have realized that there are certain gaps in your knowledge. You're like, I
Yes.
never learned that. And your
Yeah.
professor's like, they never taught you this in high school? How dare they?
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess along the critical thinking lines, uh there was so we um I think it fits the definition of a cure, which I learned from Gathwigel, the term, which I think maybe you know. Do you know what a cure class is? I think it's like doing research as education, something along those lines is what it stands for. But I did a biology 2 lab that was like that, which was awesome. And actually helped me with the like critical thinking stuff where it was literally just like instead of a normal lab where it's like, okay, this week we're gonna do this thing and here's all the things you gotta do, and then you go there and you do it.
Yep.
It's like, okay, you're doing a research project, and actually was a research project to help like some master student or someone. And there's a room that's the lab. You go to the lab on your own time. We're just gonna check up on you every once in a while, and there's some TAs to answer questions. So go do your thing. And that was awesome because it was just like lab is now during your PhD.
Hmm.
And you had to figure out like critical thinking along the lines. Um, and then, but I think a lot of my other classes, not sadly, not so much critical thinking. Was my kind of critique
Yeah.
of it. I picked up. I like to think that I picked up a lot of it from other activities. Like I'm really into politics, and I just like discussing things with people. Like contentious
Hmm.
things even are fun. Like religion and politics and stuff. So talking that with people was really fun. I think it was really helpful for me, like figuring out kind of critical thinking stuff. Like I had to look up like logical fallacies and all
Hmm.
these sorts of things. I guess a philosophy class maybe should be demanded of everyone, no matter the major.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we're realizing is that dialogue is
Oh
important
yeah.
for knowledge. I mean, think about the Socratic, method that we were already talking about. You know, they understood that in ancient Greek, like that the dialogue and the talking is where a lot of that learning comes from. But think of what many teachers traditionally have told students to do. Yeah, sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when in reality, you should have kids talking about topics, but it's hard to do in a class of 30
I
or
imagine. Yes.
even a class of 25. You get to a certain amount and you can. Um, but then when you have hormones going and everything, it gets crazy too. But
Yes.
I was at a talk with Derek Mueller, who does Veritasium, that show, and he was
Oh.
talking about the importance of dialogue as well, and why, like, in his YouTube channel, he tries to talk to people on the street and try to get that questioning about why phenomena happen in nature, and have that be a part of that discussion to try to, like we talked about earlier, where that gap in your knowledge is. Why can't you explain it? What's happened? Um, so dialogue, like we're having
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
We're not arguing,
That's
though. We're just talking.
why. That's why I don't like debates. Really, it's like two people up there, they kind of arguing with each other, and that's it. Like there's no discussion really. So I'm not a big fan of debates, but I really like discussion panels. Those are better. A little off topic, I guess, but yeah, related.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't really was too familiar with panels until I started going to PAX East, and then I'm like, oh, there are all these panels. I'm gonna start going to some of these panels, and then I was like, this is a really interesting format for getting to know people and how they think, which I really started to enjoy. It's not like they were debating a lot, but you could really kind of see how their take, their view on certain subjects and how they differ.
Yeah, I agree. I like the discussions.
So let's get into some science.
Okay, fun.
Tell me about your research. Tell
Good
us
stuff.
about it. Everyone who's here.
Ooh, all right. So I work on everyone's favorite protein and everyone's protein that they know about, histone H1. I'm sure you've all heard of it.
Bio
So
101.
well, yeah, sadly a lot of people forget it. Even biochemistry people, they're like, what is that protein again? I feel like that I remember I've heard of that. But yeah, they tend to forget it. Oh, Volcano Doc's here. Hi, Volcano
Hey,
Doc.
Volcano.
um, and okay, so what I do is my explanation here. So if you take the DNA inside of one of your cells, human cell, and you stretch it out, it'll be yay long as your arm span, which you can't see on camera. So this is how much DNA you got in one cell, which is a big amount of DNA. But your cell's a really tiny thing. So how the heck does it fit all that DNA in there? That is done through compaction of that DNA into a complex called chromatin. So it's a bunch of proteins mixed with the DNA. Histone H1 is the protein that's responsible for actually doing this compaction. And really, so I'm just really, the research I do is just trying to understand how the heck it works. How does it, what are the mechanisms behind how it does the compaction? And then what are the effects of that? Because it's actually very important. A little more in depth if you've read a bio textbook, you've probably heard of euchromatin and heterochromatin. Heterochromatin is this like closed chromatin where things like transcription and DNA replication, some other processes don't happen as much. And euchromatin is this more open chromatin where things do happen. And so H1 is responsible for causing this heterochromatin, this compaction where things don't happen as much. So it's important for understanding really, really fundamental concepts of biology to understand how it works.
Wait a minute. It's fundamental, but we don't know how it works yet. How is that
Yeah,
even
what?
possible?
Yeah, no. We wouldn't know anything about it. Yeah. Everything biology is crazy, so and there's a million exceptions. I tell people maybe a few times on stream that if you ever hear me say like always, you should probably question me, at least in biology, because it's usually never an always. There's usually an exception. But yeah, it's not fully understood. I was actually really surprised to learn just like a few years ago that there's a disease that's caused by mutations in histone H1. And I was really just surprised by it because it's so fundamental to the biology that I thought if you messed this thing up in any way, then you just would never have been born because something very fundamentally flawed would have happened. So I'm guessing that probably is the case for a lot of things, but there are some changes apparently that lead to a very rare disease, sadly. So there's health connections as well, not just.
So you beat me to my next question, which was, is there a mutation and what's disease associated with? That's,
oh yeah, it's
most research, you go to the mutation next and research it for whatever said disease.
There is in cancer, in some types of cancers, and I'm definitely no cancer biology person. There's some kinds of cancers where there's a correlation with changes in expression of H1. So there's some connection there, but it's like some correlation. But this rare disease, it used to be called Raman syndrome, and they've changed, I think, the name to histone H1E syndrome, which is the gene name. So it's HISTH1E, I think, syndrome. I don't know why they changed it to that name, but they did. I think Raman is like a kind of broad. I think they kind of figured out that there's like these intellectual disabilities that are not like related to autism, but they're kind of similar. And they found a bunch of different things that cause them. So I think they kind of started to like separate the different causes and separate them into different diseases. Technically, that's my guess. But there's that histone H1E syndrome.
I always find it amazing how I've talked to a lot of people on the show now that there is a lot known, but you go right off to the side and there's something that no one knows. It's not even that far away. It's like, we don't know that, which is the best part about science, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I always assumed, I guess, that we knew more about that protein than we do. And I never understood it when I learned it. I was always like, how does it coil and work? Because they show you these pictures, but of course they're just models. They're all models are incomplete in some way. And it just never made sense how they could wrap up that much, DNA into that dense and still be able to perform transcription and, and get something out of it, in translation. It just seems almost impossible. Obviously it's not, because we exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you have any specific questions, definitely let me know. But I guess I had a point that I was going to make. Oh yeah, I guess the point I was going to make is, yeah, H1's stupidly complicated. I'm pretty sure the professor I do research for is kind of getting tired of it because it's just annoyingly complicated to work with. Like in humans, there's 11 isoforms, it's called. So it's essentially different versions of the same protein. So it's like throughout your body, there's like, it depends on the cell type, but overall there are 11 different versions of it. And to make it even more complicated, if I remove one of those, that doesn't really seem to do much to you. But then if I start removing a bunch of them, then it starts doing things. So it seems they can kind of like take over for each other. Which obviously is complicated, but then even more complicated if you remove one of those and it's like, oh, like it doesn't really do much. it still has some effects. It changes like certain specific genes. So not only can they sort of take over for each other, maybe replace each other, but then they also have specific roles. Yet they're able to take over for each other. So it's like this weird, yeah,
Well, it
conflicting
seems like
seemingly narrative.
there's a redundancy.
Yeah, there's a redundancy, but they also have specific roles, each of them. Um, so that's an interesting thing, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff
So
about it.
it's kind of like my hand. I could take off one finger, and I could still maybe play the saxophone. But if I take off 3 or 4, then it starts to get to the point where I really can't make any music that I would want. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
make some
like that.
analogy.
Yeah. I went really cut deep into the weeds, but yes, yeah.
I'll cut deep into
Good
the
analogy.
fingers. Okay, so at least I understand that piece of it. And one of the things that always bugged me about biochemistry were all the protein pathways, and the fact that I had to like memorize a bunch of them.
I always
Oh my god! Like, do you know all these pathways by heart, or is the field at a point where it's like, you know what? You don't have to memorize these pathways. You can look it up.
I'll find it. I did know them at one point, not all of them, but a lot of them, but I've forgotten a lot of them. I don't do research on it, so I've forgotten them. But yeah, I agree that that's an annoying thing that they make you do. And I think some of it's necessary, some of it's not necessary. But the big takeaway for me from having to learn all those pathways was some really cool concepts they introduced in them. So that was a really big takeaway, which is probably why they do it. And it was really cool to figure out how your body works, but and how life in general works. But yeah, the pathways are annoying, and yeah, I've forgotten them, a lot of them. I know, like I mean, I used to be like, oh, I had to memorize glycolysis and the exact sugars and the exact enzymes and their mechanisms and the citric acid cycle and all of them and mechanisms and all this stuff. But yeah,
The Krebs cycle. Everyone memorizes the Krebs cycle.
Yeah. But now I just have the big picture idea. At least
Right.
I got that down. That's the important thing. Unless I was
Right.
doing that specific thing.
And I think that's one of those, weird things where, like, when I teach, it's the same way, where it's kind of like, why do we have to know this? And it's kind of like, well, it's you don't have to remember how to do this exactly, but you have to have an idea of the process and the big takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Because they're also like, why do we have to learn algebra? It's like, well, you're not going to have to do algebra necessarily for a job, right? But you have certain ways of thinking that can help you understand the world.
Yeah.
Which to an 8th grader means nothing to them. But
they'll learn eventually.
they'll learn eventually. But all right, I had to get that question out there, since biochemistry, that's one of the things that always bug the crap out of me.
So
okay.
I think that's probably the case with most biochemistry people, is they've probably forgotten it unless they're doing research on that. That would be my guess.
In molecular people too, those molecular pathways.
Yeah. I've even forgotten definitely some organic chemistry for sure, because I don't do anything with it.
You have the main takeaways. You're like, carbon.
Yeah.
Got
carbon.
It.
That's the main takeaway. Carbon likes electrons.
Yeah.
Never make more than 4 bonds. The end.
There you go. All you need to know. Wonderful. Joy. We have mainly science people in the chat, which is interesting, of course.
Yeah.
No students tonight, at least, that are fessing up that they're here, or other randoms. Here's some questions.
Ooh, all right. Are you fine if you want to say them? I imagine.
What got you interested in science? Volcano Doc wants to know.
Ooh, yeah. So I explained to Scott earlier. I guess I'm not sure science in general. I don't know. But I think when I was when I was little, I was kind of always like the mess with things type. So Uncle Bill might like this. And hi, Uncle Bill. I was like, I had a toolbox that was just dedicated to me of like things I have taken apart. So I would get like the cheap like walkie-talkies for kids or something like that, and I would take it apart. And I wouldn't put it back together though. And then I just put all the parts in my toolbox, on my toolbox of electronic stuff that I would then be like, maybe I should do something with this. And be like, well, I don't know anything about electronics. I'm little. Oh, whatever. it's just cool to take things apart, I guess, and look into it. So I guess I kind of had that idea of like maybe I was just curious, but I mean a lot of kids are curious. But yeah, in school I just thought like, oh, I want to be a doctor, maybe like a medical doctor. And then I really liked history, so I thought about maybe doing history. But then in high school I took chemistry. I really liked chemistry, and Frankenstein influenced me a lot, so I just ended up doing chemistry related stuff. Frankenstein for the win. I don't remember the story very well. I probably should now, but it was I love that book so much.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein is not the monster. Or no, sorry. Yeah, Frankenstein's not the monster. Frankenstein's the professor who made the monster. Pro tip.
I found a lot of people that I talked to that it's they're the type of people when they to go into science are the ones that take everything apart, right? And there's also the mindset of collecting and like exploring, or like you would just go to the beach and you would just look at everything and like collect shells or something and organize them into piles. There are those kinds of people too. That was more of like what I was. And then you just read endlessly about topics as well. And then of course, like you, the ones that take things apart
Yeah.
and don't put them back together again.
Yep. And now I just do electronics sometimes on stream. I guess living on the dream there, except I'm kind of building things sometimes, not just taking them apart. Slowly learning.
You ever put that walkie-talkie back together?
No. I should
No.
see if my parents still have that though.
Oh, probably. What's going to happen, and I don't know if anyone else has an experience when you get older, eventually your parents will like downsize or they'll move or something, and then they'll be like, we have all your stuff, we're going to drop it off at your place. And all of a sudden you're like, you had my like class photo from first grade still, and my science award from third grade, and my toolbox of walkie-talkie parts.
They did actually just move kind of recently. I don't know if they got rid of it. I don't know. Hope not. They did ask me like, "Oh, do you want this thing?" But they didn't drop it off. I'm too far away for them to drop off. So that's the advantage for me, I guess.
Uncle Bill had paper bags
Paper bags. Ooh.
full of stuff. So
Sorted motors. I don't think I had fancy electronics like that. I don't know what it's. I guess I don't know different types of motors very well. I remember. I don't know if I probably wouldn't have done it because I would have been too scared. I forgot about this. I remember one time I had a dream of like making an airplane car. So I just like wanted to make a car that you would like drive off a cliff and all of a sudden you'd be flying. And so I started trying to make it. And I just every once in a while think about like, wow, what if I would have tried that? That would not have ended well. I probably would have gone off some really small thing, I imagine. I probably would have been too scared. I wouldn't have done it anyways. I don't know.
So I used to do that with all my toy cars. That like the doors would open and then be wings, you know.
Oh yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't actually drive cars. So I'm probably just like, I'm going to throw the doors open and we'll fly.
Yep, fly time.
Because there was this cartoon called Mask. This was in the 80s, and like the whole thing was the doors would turn into wings and the car would fly. And of course, then, my mind just went with that. And
Maybe I saw that. I don't know. I might have seen
I
that.
don't know. It's pretty obscure. Maybe it's just my weird memory kind of remembering that, but not really. I don't know. Maybe someone in chat will. No, actually, I'm probably older than most people in chat. No, maybe not. Uncle Bill's, of course, older than I am. But product of the 80s that I am. Every reference I have is 80s bound.
80s. I only know 80s music. I don't know any 80s anything else.
I will say, I'll digress a little bit. Like I listen to a lot of metal, not a lot of metal, but it's one of the things I listen to. And I went through probably 6 years without any students listening to like Pantera or Mudvayne or Sepultura or good stuff. And then like this year I have like a smattering of them, and it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, that's
you guys
it's
actually
amazing.
listen to it. I'm like, yeah. I mean, usually I have other interests because I listen to a really diverse realm of music, but like that in particular, like kind of fell out of fashion, I guess, in the realm of youth culture.
Yeah,
This year, I'm like, yeah.
I feel like a lot of people don't listen to metal, uh, that are younger probably. Well, I mean some obviously, but I
So,
guess it's just not popular in general.
another question from Volcano Doc. What is your absolute favorite thing about your research? And what
Hmm.
is your least favorite thing? She's asking the tough questions here.
Oh yeah, I know. Ooh. So I think my least favorite thing right now, maybe I can think of one overall, is I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's getting very annoying. Um, just getting tiring. Uh, but my favorite thing, I still think my favorite thing, well, two things. That's hard to decide. Volcano Doc, you're asking me to decide between like my children or something. I don't know. It's like uh I think the eureka moments maybe. I really like those. Like I don't know if it's cliche or not, but I guess like I've been just sleep awake at night, being like, oh, I should sleep, but just thinking about stuff and like, oh, wait a second. I could try this experiment. What about this? What? I just had this revelation that it might be this. Those are awesome. Or like getting the result that you didn't expect. I think is really cool too. And it's like, oh my, wait, I didn't expect that. That's weird. Oh wait, it could mean this. That's really, that's awesome when it happens.
Yeah.
And then also I think just telling people, talking to people about like science stuff, is very cool. I think like I like really at any level, it's fun to talk to people about it, like kind of public level or like really in depth. Could be really fun. I guess it just depends on your mood. But it's really fun no matter what. But yeah, I think least favorite thing. That's favorite. Least favorite's probably just doing it over and over and over again right now. But that's research. You know, there's other things like grad school and science, the science establishment, and other things too.
I can see that's kind of like teaching. It's like you like everything, but the grading and the feedback you got to get on everything. Yeah, that's part of it.
It's also cool to see like growth in yourself
Yeah.
because start out where your professor, your PI is like, you should do this and this and this and this, and you just do what they say, and then you get a result, and you're like, I don't know, really know what this means. I guess I'll talk to them, and then now I'm at the point where it's just like I know more than him, so I'm like I'll do this thing next, and I tell him like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and I just do what I want. But yeah, it just so happens the current thing I'm doing is just a repeating the same thing over and over again. Not the same exact experiment, but like the same technique. So it's just annoying. A bit annoying. And it takes a long time and it requires a lot of focus, so it's tiring.
When did you realize that you had like grown? Like when were you at the point where you just because you kind of
Mm.
mentioned that you kind of like knew at one point you knew as much or more about a topic than your supervisor in a way. I mean, you remember that exact moment?
I feel like it was the pandemic. Uh, it was the start of the pandemic. And I guess I'm not exactly sure how it came about, but um, I guess it was. I don't want to. How do I want to say this? I don't want to sound mean to someone. I guess it was being like, I need to kind of I need to like kind of take the reins myself,
Mhm.
or else things will go down like a kind of tangential path. Even though I
Mhm.
really like tangents, I my brain is scattered brain. But I think it's kind of my I guess criticism. I guess one of my systematic science criticisms is professors, and it's not because professors are like, you know, I mean, they're awesome. It's just the system. They don't have time. So I
Right.
think it's a time thing.
Okay.
So I guess to be more explicit, what I'm saying is, I think a lot of times professors they don't have a lot of time. They have to balance
Mhm.
research, teaching,
Yep.
and a big part of the research is just grant writing, which I would not
Yes.
like to do. So I think a lot of professors just end up not having time, so they don't really spend a whole lot of time talking to their grad students, and talking about research and such. So a lot of times they end up talking to them about it for a little bit of time, but they don't. like, and they, especially if they have a bunch of grad students, they don't remember everything you've done before or what you plan on doing. So then they kind of come at it from like not knowing everything and then being like, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that, but not thinking about the full context of what you've already done and where like you could potentially go in the future because of what you've already done. And I guess to be even more explicit, the reason that matters is because a paper usually is kind of seen as like a story. So it's like they don't have enough time a lot of the time, so they don't really know the full story. They know a little piece of the story, and because they know a little piece of the story, they kind of can lead you to a part that is not really necessarily a good place to go because they don't know the whole story, which you know the whole story. So I think it's very nice to get to a point where you like can realize and well, it takes time, but be to that point and realize you're at a point where you kind of know the full story, and so you should kind of guide it yourself and try to work towards something. I think it's more productive that way. So I think I realized that during the pandemic, and that's when I think I had that moment. And I guess it's like anything where it probably just didn't happen like right away. It was like, oh, eureka! It just like eventually slowly kind of grew.
So you know what you're doing?
I guess. So yeah, scientists are very careful with the words too. I guess I would say my PI, they're a PI, right? They've been in academia for way longer than me. They know what they're doing way more. So I guess I don't mean to say like I know what I'm doing like more than my PI for many things. The point is, I guess that he knows how to write papers way better than me, how to tell a story way better than me, all these sorts of things. But I guess my point is that at least when it comes to like the general story of your research, unless they are investing a lot of time, like trying to remember all the stuff you've done, then you can end up having a better idea than they can. At least that's been my experience, and I think I've seen it in a lot of people where they sometimes get sent off on tangents that are maybe not the best way to go for like completing their current work, and then ends up taking them longer to get done with their PhD because of it. Yeah.
Well, I think
So
that's kind of the goal of the professor, is to have you go off on your own. You know, they don't want you to be in servitude to them.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the goal. Yeah,
yeah,
you
they
become an
want you.
independent scientist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I want to go to Non-Dairy's had a couple good comments here, asking his coworkers what their favorite technology was, and they chose video calls, but which I think is great, right? Stay
Oh,
connected to your families. That's wonderful.
yeah.
Um, I've had this conversation with students because it's a fun one to talk about, just to like have a chit chat. And I'm always like, do you prefer that over hot and cold running water and refrigeration?
No. I would rather have hot, cold water and refrigeration, but it is a nice thing to have on top of that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine getting well, I don't know, maybe an ice box is fine. I don't know what it was like to have an ice box. Hot and cold water for sure. I guess you could boil
Hey,
water for a
a
shower.
hot shower is like one of the
Yeah.
best things, right? I mean, that imagine living without hot showers. Electricity, exactly. Well, I can have a hot shower without electricity. It can be done. But yes, electricity is one of those technologies. And then you talk about what defines technology and blah blah blah. It's a good conversation to have with kids, or adults too. It's a fun. Would you rather, you know, live without ice cream or hot showers?
Oh. Hot showers for sure. I hate showers. I had to eat ice cream every day for dinner. I would love it. My parents.
I
wish
had
they
to
would
ask
let
an
me do
8-year-old. So that's funny. And you know, back to the other conversation about like your people that you look up to, and that like you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm really good at this. I remember like when I was in my 20s and I thought I was so awesome, right? And I'm like, and I was doing kung fu. I've done martial arts my entire life, and I'm like, oh, I'm really good. You know, I've been practicing and everything. I'm probably as good as, you know, my instructor at this point. And of course, then you know something happens, or
Yeah.
he does something, and I'm like, I will suck my entire life. You know, it's like I will, you know, it's like, will I ever be that good? And then, you know, I don't know, a lot of people have this experience in grad school, the imposter syndrome,
Yes,
or
yes.
professionally anywhere. Did you have your bout of imposter syndrome that you had to get through?
It's probably always there.
Always there. Right.
So
Yep.
yes.
I'm the same. I had
uh
that this past week. I had like not a great week earlier this week, and I was like, everyone can teach but me. Those kind of things are like, yep.
yeah, it's always a thing, I think. Probably even if you're PI, um probably pretty much everyone. Yeah. It's I don't know if I ever had a bout though, but I think definitely there's been moments. Like I told you about histone H1 being complicated. Also seems to be not that popular. Like people don't really seem to care about it really, even in the chromatin field. So I've had moments, yeah. Like I went to a conference. So yeast is. So I told you in humans there's 11 different versions of it. In yeast there's only one.
Hmm.
And actually, if you get rid of it, it doesn't really seem to do a whole lot to the yeast, which is completely opposite of what I told you in humans. So that's another reason it's complicated. I told you it's complicated and annoying. But so all these people work in yeast and they're like, oh, if you get rid of H1, it doesn't really do much. So why do we care? So I'm at a conference where everyone does yeast stuff and they're all working with like cells and doing work with cells, but I don't do work with cells. All my stuff's in the test tube. So that was kind of rough. I didn't feel like I knew anything or belonged or anything. I don't know if that was exactly imposter syndrome, but uh, yeah, I've had my moments, but I think it's always there,
Yeah.
even now, definitely.
I just bring it up because I know there are a lot of the people in the chat, and we can all relate. I think we all feel that, and I think that
Yeah.
fact that we all feel that way, but we all kind of respect each other, and we don't consider each other imposters. Way to go, everybody! You're
Good.
you're good,
Yeah.
right? From one weirdo you met on the internet to somebody else you met on the internet.
Hey,
um,
that's
at,
until TwitchCon comes up, right? At some point.
at some point, at some point,
If people go to it. I've
it,
never been to a um what are they called even? A con, I guess. What does
yeah,
that stand for? Conference?
yeah.
Okay. I usually just think conference is like a science word. I
I
guess
don't
it's
like
not.
saying
I don't know
con because
why.
it sounds like you're getting cheated out of your money,
Oh
which
yeah.
often is what conferences feel like, anyways. So I guess it fits. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
I'd usually meet a lot of people. I used to go to PAX East, and I'd meet a lot of people, that I'd see online there. So looking forward to it. Yes, convention.
Oh, it's convention. Okay,
Yes.
that makes more sense. Okay, convention. Yeah. See, that's how
So it's still
a
a
little
con. They take your money. No.
I've yeah. See, like I said, gone to zero of them. So maybe I will in the
Looks
future.
like we don't go to a convention for like a year and a half, and suddenly we forget what it means.
Well, yeah. That's true. Or a conference. I haven't been to a conference in a while either, even though they are online
Yep.
now. But yeah.
I do have one lined up for this summer.
Ooh,
So I do have an in-person, like professional development I'm doing. So I'm attending.
sweet.
So
I I
that'll be
guess
great.
yeah, good luck. It's in oh yeah, it's in person. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Do they require vaccinations to get in or
I don't know yet. I'm
okay.
vaccinated, so it doesn't matter. So whatever. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see.
Sweet. I have one on Friday. Yes, Friday. But it's like our school one that they kind of that they make us do. So it's not
Uh,
like a national conference or anything, but that's still a thing to do. It's good.
yep. Another one, since we're on that, let me find, if you've never heard of Games for Change, it's a big
Mm-mm.
gaming conference. And it's free.
Ooh,
And I'll put it in the chat.
I like free.
It used to cost, like, if you went in person, it was like $300 a day. It was some ridiculous amount of money. And
Nope.
exactly, it's like, nope. And even if you presented at it, it was like you could go to your session and then you had to leave that you were
Huh.
presenting, that kind of thing. And so, but they
Wow.
made it free last year, and it was great. And of course, the people that go to these, get paid by, huge tech companies for the most part to go
Okay.
and present. And so it's free this year. So if anyone wants to go, that's my thing for me to you if you never heard of Games for Change. It's like serious games and stuff like that. So, um, good stuff. The last year was awesome. So I plan on registering and going to that as well. That's in July,
I gotta
but
get
that's
my gamer
online.
cred up first.
Well, that's another imposter thing. You will never have
I
your
know.
gamer credit, or you. I don't say never, but I'm like, you know, if you finish a game, it's amazing. At least for me, it's like, oh my god, I actually finished a game. What do you know?
Yep. I got the new world record on this one. Never gonna happen.
Oh geez, legendary. That's crazy. But actually,
Ooh.
this one, the Games for Change was, I liked the way they had it set up as an online conference where they had these like separate rooms where you could just kind of go for topics and hang out and network and talk to people, especially like before and like after sessions that kind of simulate those conversations you would have at a conference that you don't get if it's just scheduled Zoom meetings. So I know that most people I've talked to, and you know, Nathan, you're probably the same way. Part of the thing you like about the conference is not just attending someone's talk, but the coffee chats you have with people or the drinks afterwards or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, because the it gets a little tiring, the talks. Especially the science ones. Not like a fun convention, the talks get tiring because you're like serious brain mode for an entire day. Um they are and certain ones are interesting. I went to like a really big one, Cold Spring Harbor. Do you know Cold Spring Harbor?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, oh yeah, you're in New York, so it's
Yep.
kind of close to you. It's just like kind of famous lab in New York. I'm not really sure how it got famous. James Watson, everyone's
Mm-hmm.
well, we know about James Watson. He was like the president, I think, of it, but it's really big for just research. But they had conferences. They have conferences there, and I went to that one a few years ago, and yeah, very contentious, I would say. There were some like ideas that apparently people like kind of hotly debated, I guess, and people were just kind of mean and rude with questions and like answers to them. So that was interesting to see. So there's drama, I guess, at conferences too. But yeah, the talking with people is a big part of it, not just listening. Um, yeah, I agree. But I've only ever been to an academic conference. I've never been to uh well there's other, I guess, okay, obviously there's non-biochemistry academic ones, but I guess I've also never been to another field academic conference or just a for fun, convention or something like flat earth convention or something, which I'm not going to go to.
Yeah. And that's one of the things what I was, that's brought up sometimes in teaching fields, that they'll have education conferences through academia, but have no teachers there or students, and so it's kind of
What?
like, because they're all just talking academic journals and research,
I see. Yeah.
but it's like, well, there's policy and practice kind of that should be involved as well, besides just academics talking to each other. And that's where, I like the idea of maybe attending some, and this is why I like watching a lot of, the other science streamers, is actually hearing from academics, and maybe someday I'll go to an academic conference
Yeah.
for a field and just sit there and drool, I guess, because I probably don't understand very little of it. But, have that experience, and maybe branch out of my shell.
Well, even if you're in the field, it can be like drooling. I definitely didn't. I definitely didn't know all the stuff they were talking about at that conference. Because I mean, I'm sure you know this. A lot of people know this, that like fields are very specialized. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite specialized in my field, and even my chromatin field, I definitely don't know everything and haven't heard of some things. So it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. When you get into a room and there's only the 5 other people that do anything in the field that you're in, and you're like,
Yeah,
the 5 of us are here.
yeah. I mean, I told you that nobody really cares about
Yeah.
each one. I actually have some people competing now, so that's a nice thing to have, I guess. I know of some people now who do it. I've never even met them. Have I? No, I have met one of them. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I have met one of them.
Well, since we've talked about New York, we'll
Okay.
go down to New York City and we'll go to Coney Island, the home of Nathan's Hot Dogs.
Oh yes.
And I want to ask you 3 questions about Nathan's Hot Dogs to see
Okay.
how much, Nathan, you actually know about Nathan's.
Nothing.
Hopefully you'll get 2 out of 3 questions right, and some lucky person in this
Oh yeah,
stream
get the sub.
will get a sub. So if not, you've just disappointed somebody
What
and they're going to cry themselves to sleep tonight.
what brand of sub do they get? Jersey Mike's, Subway.
If only. They're like, where's my Uber Eats order? Dang it.
Yeah.
You said I'd get a sub. No, not that kind of sub, you fool. All right. So, question number 1. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
Nathan's Hot Dogs started on Coney Island. Which of the following did not frequent the location? A. Al Capone. B. Cary Grant. C. John Wayne.
I'm gonna say. See here, that was really bad. The attempt. Al Capone. I'm gonna say Al Capone. That was a really bad.
The answer
attempt.
was John Wayne.
John Wayne.
He never went there. Al Capone and Cary Grant both frequented Nathan's Hot Dogs.
I have to get the other 2 right now. Why? Wait, where? John Wayne. I imagine he lives in California a lot. Where's he from?
Yeah,
though,
he
originally?
mainly, I don't know where he was originally from, but he
Okay.
mainly was out west, doing movies and whatnot.
Okay.
Western.
I just thought
I
Al-
kind of thought that was a gimme, but okay.
Yeah,
Well, Cary Grant was a star too, but Cary Grant was
I
in
don't-
New York City.
I don't know who Cary Grant is.
What? You don't? Okay.
If anybody's here from my stream, you'll know that I know nothing about Hollywood. So
Right.
if
Well, that
there's
was a
any
good
more
question for you
Hollywood-
then.
yeah,
There's someone in chat screaming right now.
yeah, probably.
All right, question 2. Proof you're not an old. Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Diatoms.
Proof you're not an old. All right, question 2. According to legend, how did the hot dog eating contest start in 1916?
According to legend.
So, I mean, you are familiar with Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I started it.
So here are 3 possible stories, only one of which is true. Was it A, on July 4th, 4 immigrants got into a heated argument on who was the most patriotic and decided to settle it by seeing who could eat the most hot dogs? Was it B, a regiment of World War I vets stopped by the store after first consuming a few libations, and then their raucous partying turned into a competition to consume the most hot dogs? Or was it C, Woodrow Wilson signed a bill incorporating the Boy Scouts of America, and to celebrate that occasion, Nathan's Hot Dogs invited 4 local Boy Scout troops to compete in a hot dog eating competition?
Okay, I feel like I've heard it before, so maybe it's a little unfair, but I guess that's how you learn everything is you've heard it before. So, however, I'm having false memories here, so either it's A or C. I think it's A. I'm gonna go with A.
You are correct.
Okay,
It is
cool, yes.
A.
I like it because it's a true American answer.
Yep.
Because you got immigrants in there, so
Yep. It's
going
true.
into politics a little.
Yep. I did have to do a little research for that one on history. So
All right.
to come up with some other believable answers. Because 1916 was the year that the Boy Scouts of America was incorporated.
Really? Oh, I see. You're trying to trick me. Well, you see, I don't know anything about the Boy Scouts, so it didn't work.
Yep. But had to make it believable. All right. Question 3.
All right, I gotta get this.
All right. So since 2007, Joey Chestnut has won the mustard yellow belt, right? That top prize for Nathan's Hot Dogs eating competition 10 times. He lost his title briefly in 2015 to Matt Stoney, who beat him 62 hot dogs to 60. Now, Chestnut holds the world hot dog eating record. He consumed 73.5 Nathan's famous hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. All right, and he's ranked the #1 competitive eater in the world.
Okay.
He holds some other 10-minute records for eating what? A, 45 slices of pepperoni pizza. B, nearly 13 pounds of deep fried asparagus. C, 6 whole ducks.
In 10 minutes. I could do that. No. I feel like I've heard this one as well. Ooh. I'm gonna have to go with A again. All A's.
The answer was B.
Oh!
Nearly 13 pounds of deep fried asparagus.
I did not expect that.
He has also eaten, in 10 minutes, 47 grilled cheese sandwiches, 25 pounds of poutine, and a whole turkey.
Oh, and wait.
Not at the same time. Each one was 10 minutes. So
okay.
still, if you could eat a whole turkey in 10 minutes, what pound turkey was? That's what I want to know. Was that like a 10-pound turkey? Because that's a pound a minute. That's still impressive, but that is kind of gross. In fact, that's not kind of gross. That is gross.
I wonder if he hates all of the foods he's competitively eaten. Probably, right? He's got to.
He keeps doing it, so you can't hate it that much.
No, I mean like when he's not doing the competition, he's like, I can't eat hot dogs. I can't eat turkey.
You got to practice, though.
I guess it's like being a forest ranger. You know, you eventually don't like the outside because you're doing it all the time.
Yep. But God, 47 grilled cheese sandwiches. I don't know. I like to taste my food.
Yeah. I want to know how he got half of how do they measure that he got half of a hot dog? I guess they look at what's left over.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I got half of it. That's it. Or who eat poutine? Oh God, it's disgusting anyways. How do you eat 25 pounds of it?
What? Poutine's so good.
No, I like poutine.
All right, that's fair.
But 25 pounds of it though? I mean, how much of that's gravy?
That liquid. Is there a liquid competition? I've only ever heard of him eating solid food. Came up with a new thing. Liquid competition. I don't know if that's more dangerous or not. There is, drinking too much water.
Yep. I mean, if you eat, I don't know, like that much gravy, that's just a heart attack waiting to happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
How? Okay, I don't want to get into some really gross bits about your digestive system, but I mean, I eat too much for dinner and I regret it the next day. It's like you eat 73.5 hot dogs, you got to have a bad month.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
that's a good point. I
don't even know how it's physically possible. I mean, obviously it is possible, but
there must be some substances they take.
I wonder if they test them for drugs, like it's the Olympics or something.
Oh, I was wondering.
You got doped up, huh? They shot you full of oxygen before you started eating your hot dogs.
They have like an ice cream eating competition for people who are lactose intolerant. They're like, we got to test you for lactase first.
Yeah.
Darn, I lost.
They're like, smoking the weed, getting yourself a little hungry there, huh? Got the munchies before the Doritos eating competition.
Yep. How dare you, sir?
How dare you? That's illegal.
I have seen the pepper ones. Those really hot pepper ones. I feel like those are probably the worst ones. Maybe. Well, maybe I guess maybe you don't get full, but obviously peppers. That's
hot Cheetos.
Hot Cheetos.
The kids love hot Cheetos. That's like the thing nowadays.
Yeah, I do know about that, but I don't eat no hot Cheetos.
I had a student last year. Every day, first period, he'd come in with a bag of hot Cheetos, and then he'd get his greasy Cheeto fingers all over everything. And then I'd be like,
Ugh,
"Why were you touching that?" I wasn't touching that. I'm like, "That beaker has hot Cheeto dust all over it. You're
it's
telling
red.
me you didn't touch it?" Oh, you
No, no,
caught me.
no. No, this is an incentive for them to learn science because then they could be like, well, actually, that's strontium that's on there that I flame tested, so it's red. It's on fire right now.
If they answered that, I would have been like, "Good day, sir. I believe it. You graduate, move on."
Congrats, you've earned your bachelor's degree.
Yep. Carry on. I do that sometimes. I'd be like, "All right, my job here is done. I'm leaving."
Wow.
You actually
Yeah,
know
I mean,
everything I need to know. I've done that before. Like I have an entire lesson planned, and I'm like, "All right, we're gonna learn about this," and I'll be like, I don't know, like show like a demo or something, and some kid will be like, "Oh, I saw this on YouTube," and he'll like go through the entire lesson and know everything, and I'll just be like, "Okay, well, now that we've finished that, I guess we'll go on to tomorrow's lesson." Thank you
well,
for the spoiler. Okay, yeah,
yeah, you have to make them say spoiler alert beforehand,
yep,
and then hand out headphones for everyone if they don't want to hear it.
yep. Oh yeah. But usually it's too late because they're too willing, and it's like, how do I not have a kid share his knowledge about science with everyone else? You want to
Yeah, I
do
mean, that's a
that?
good
You
thing.
go.
That's awesome. That's awesome that they're watching on YouTube too.
Oh, kids love like it's amazing like what like I mean I used to watch VHS documentaries and everything else when I was a kid, but like there are so many like King of Random, you know,
Oh yeah.
that's a great channel. Mark Rober, of course, you know, kids know him, and his channel, and you know, random other ones, you know, Crazy Russian Hacker. When I was big, kids loved that guy. You know,
Dude,
anyone that does anything with like slow mo guys, a lot of the kids will watch that channel as well. So those are
do
great.
uh do they ever watch Now Red? Have you ever heard them bring up Now Red? I'm curious.
I don't think so, but probably.
Okay.
I'm not,
Okay.
you
I was
know,
wondering.
it's not one of the more pod. Cause usually I'll ask, I'll be like, well, where'd you see that? Because I want to know. Because I'll look it up and I'll show it to class. I'll just bring it up and we'll watch it together if it's a good one. Um, but yeah, all it takes is it's great because they watch one science video, and of course YouTube's like, oh,
Yep.
here are some
Algorithm.
other recommended channels for you on science. Uh, Nerd
Yes.
out, buddy.
Maybe Twitch does that too. I don't know the Twitch
No,
recommended stuff very
well,
well.
it's a some of it's I think it's
Gaming.
better than it was, but it's not. It I think there's a lot of crossover now versus like when I first went on, it was like impossible to find any of the edgy
Mm.
streamers. But I think the more of us that follow each other and connect with each other, then the more likely it is that, you know, if one person, you know, finds a channel, the other one will be recommended to them as well.
I see.
As long as I understand algorithms correctly. I mean,
Yeah.
Uncle Bill, if he's here, will probably go into a, you know, 10-minute lecture on it. William Osmond. You've heard of William Osmond?
Yeah, I know
And
William Osmond. William
right.
Osmond's awesome. I love that. I love that type of like mixing humor with the science stuff. So yeah, he's an engineer, so he just does interesting engineer stuff. And he does a lot of funny haha stuff with it. He's more
Yep.
family friendly. There's other ones like what's his name? I'm sure non-dairy knows him. Or he's a friend of his. Yeah, there's some similar engineer people, but some of them are not as family friendly. If that's
Mm-hmm.
not your thing. But yeah, YouTube. I thought about doing YouTube at first, but I like, just Michael Reeves. Yeah, that's who it is, non-dairy.
Yep.
I like to interact with people more. So Twitch all the way. But I feel like I might also try making some YouTube videos at some point. Like I wanna do my own taste DNA video. But now Red has a big one with that. But the way he did it is he just isolated the DNA and then he just like evaporated everything. So it was DNA with a bunch of salt left behind. So he's like, it's really salty. So I have a way of getting rid of the salt, hopefully. So I just want
Oh.
to see if it makes a difference or not. And also, I might try RNA too, see if there's a difference, but I doubt it. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Taste is a complicated thing. I don't know if you know or not, but like aspartame, everyone's favorite artificial sweetener, is made of amino acids, and amino acids are not sugars, and so but it's sweet. So it's like interesting how you can get like completely different types of molecules, but they taste like something that's not that molecule at all. Taste is a complicated thing. It's annoying.
It is pretty specialized, but don't taste anything in lab, kids.
Yeah, don't taste anything in lab.
Even though it's how they discovered a bunch of different things.
Yeah, only if you're only yeah. That is how I think that's
aspartame, wasn't it?
Is it?
Or was that Splenda?
So.
It was one of the artificial sweeteners.
I think Splenda is aspartame. I think.
No, Splenda is like 10 times sweet, or is it like the same thing as a purified?
As what?
I mean, you said it's the same thing, but it'd have to be stronger because Splenda, I think, is 10 times sweeter than aspartame is, I believe.
Oh.
Or it's like, it's some like
Splenda
amount sweeter. You looking it up? Do the Google search for us.
I'm looking it up quick. I'm just curious. I always forget which one's which. Oh, this one is sucralose. Okay, never mind. Oh, it's a brand. Oh, that's a little confusing. Okay, we won't go into this. Yeah, there's different ones, obviously.
Delve down into it.
I did the. Have you ever heard of miracle berries before?
No.
So they're from somewhere in Africa. I don't remember now. They have a protein called miraculin, and it binds to your taste buds, and it makes sour things taste sweet. So I did that once, and I talked about the science a little bit, but it's very fun, and I'm sure you can look it up, and I'm sure a lot of people have done it. But anything that's acidic, you drink it, and or eat it, it'll be sweet instead of sour.
Talk about something awesome in class to do, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like to blow kids' minds, and they're just like,
what? Yeah, it's completely safe.
All right, so, and then get into the, form equals function kind of discussion or whatever.
Yeah.
Why does it do that? And that'd be interesting. Can you just order that? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, if you go to Amazon, you type in miracle berries, you'll find them. I think you can get like 10 of them for $10, $15, something like that. Last time I checked. And you eat one per person, and it lasts like a few hours. They'll last a while. The only thing you have to be careful about, right, is that drinking a whole bunch of vinegar, probably not good for you. Your digest, later, your tummy might not agree with you, but it tastes good. It honestly tastes good just to drink vinegar. It's so good. And just eating a lemon and lime, is the best. It's like you eat the lime, and it's like you're drinking lemonade. It's awesome.
Oh my God.
The very first time I did that was in college, and I went to Chipotle, and we just rated their limes. They have a bunch of limes you can put on things, so we just took all the limes, and we're like, yes! Everyone's probably like, what the heck?
That's a different. Those are miracle mushrooms.
Oh yeah, non-dairy. Different types of miracles you get from that.
Yeah, these are like tablet forms.
Yeah, it's just the dried berry, I guess. Not entirely sure, but
10 count pack of one for $13.
Yeah, there you go. Try it out.
I'm gonna have to.
It's fun.
I'm ordering it right now.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just because I have to I don't know if I give it to a kid, is a parent gonna be like, what the hell did you do to my child?
Yeah. I don't know the legality and ethics of that, but
what you do is you leave it out, and you're like, don't eat that.
Today, class, we're gonna drink lemonade. Not lemonade, lemon juice. We just want to drink lemon juice. Let's see.
Dissolve it in there. Oh my god.
Milk expiring. Just drink some miracle berries.
I
Should
can
have tried that.
I can get it by
No, I'm not
I
gonna
can
try
get it
that.
by Friday. If I order now.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But yeah, I looked up the science some. It's actually not super well known, but it's seems weak acids work better than strong acids, which I don't think you're really going to be eating any strong acids. I can't think of any you'd be eating, but weak acids, there you go.
Here we go. Ordered it.
And
That'll
I
be
tried Guinness with it, and I don't know how I like that. It was
oh, I
like
don't know.
sweet Guinness.
Oh, that would ruin beer. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that.
I'm sure there were people in Ireland like crying when I did that or something.
You ever hear an entire country sob
Yeah, at once.
at once? The entire universe cried out, or at least one country.
Somebody did say they think it sounded awesome though. They were try it. There's some people that might like it. I didn't like it. I don't really like beer in the first place, but it just made it weirder. But yeah, drink vinegar and lemon juice or lemonade. Sorry, yeah, just lemon juice or lime juice.
I'm just gonna buy a lemon and eat it.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, I have my own kids to experiment on. See how they like it. Yeah, and a lot of the YouTube channels, it's kind of like it they go through this thing where it's let's just buy a whole lot of something and use it. Like
Yeah.
let's make a whole lot of pudding, or let's fill what can we fill a pool with? Or
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
what can we
filled
fill a
poo.
pool with? Jello. What can we fill a pool with? Dead bodies. You know, I mean,
Oh.
whatever they decide that they want to do to get a sponsor or someone clickbait essentially. Then that's what they seem to do.
Yep.
Or you get
all-
one machine and you go to town on it. Like you get one really, I don't know, like it's like a slow-mo camera. It's like, all right, we're just gonna fill everything with slow-mo. Of course, you still have to do it well and have good production. Or let's get a crusher. We're just gonna crush everything.
Destroy. Oh, those I like those hydraulic things.
Oh yeah,
though.
the hydraulic press. Let's get a hydraulic
Yeah.
press and let's just press things.
That that reminds me of that YouTube video I was gonna do. I love Now Red, but like I was like, oh, the title's gonna be like the most clickbait thing ever. Be like, Now Red taking down the true DNA taste test, like something stupid. I was not gonna do that. I was just like, that's what like the people who are like, oh, I care so much about like clickbait would do.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna be getting to bed soon.
All right.
Natty.
I-
It's 11 o'clock, so I gotta get myself motivated to wake up in the morning.
Yeah, I gotta travel tomorrow now.
Oof.
Going to see family first time in years because
Oh.
of COVID. So
Good luck
nice.
to you with that.
yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, hopefully. I mean, I should all go fine. Good thing is the airplanes at least can require masks still. So, and I've got my medical N95 from lab. So there we go.
Yep. Next week, on the chat, I have Hezekiah Branch, and let me see if I can